Welcome to Alien Shadow. If you love epic sci-fi stories where humanity shines, you're in the right place. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for thrilling HFY adventures. Bell. Join us and be part of the journey. The cold night on Velcaro 3. The wind howled across the frozen wastelands of Velcarath. Ray, a deadly planet with sharp rocks, endless snow, and no mercy for the weak. Jack Rendell, a human ex-soldier, stumbled through the blizzard, blood dripping from a cut on his leg. He had crash-landed here hours ago after shuttle was hit by an unknown weapon. His ship was now a pile of burning metal. Behind him, useless and broken, he had no signal, no team, and almost no time left. His breathing was rough and frost was forming on his beard. Every part of his body hurt, and the cold bit deeper. With each step, he needed shelter or he would die here, far from Earth, far from help. Then through the snow and mist, he saw a dark shape half buried in the ice. Was a metallic bunker, likely from the older wars. He limped forward and forced the frozen door open. Inside was pitch black and filled with a strange, musky scent, but it was warmer, and that was enough. He shut the door behind him and dropped to the ground, exhausted. Jack wrapped his arms around himself, shaking, teeth chattering. He didn't see the glowing yellow eyes watching him from the shadows, not until a deep growl filled the room, low and threatening. Jack reached for his sidearm, but his hand was too slow. A tall, fur-covered alien stepped into view. Female, strong and wild, she looked like a mix of human and wolf, with sleek black fur, sharp claws, and tribal markings across her arms. Her name was Rosari, though Jack wouldn't learn that until later. Right now she stared at him like a stranger who'd walked into her den. She growled again, but didn't attack. Instead, she tilted her head, studying him. Jack didn't move, holding his breath, waiting for death. Then slowly she stepped back, nodded once, and lay down on the opposite side of the bunker. It was clear she didn't see him as a threat, or maybe she didn't want to waste energy fighting him. Either way, he was too tired to care. He lay down too, shivering, curling into a ball. After long silence, she moved closer just a bit. The warmth from her body was incredible. Like standing near a fire, she grunted, annoyed, then grabbed his arm and pulled him closer. Jack was too shocked to resist. She wrapped one of her large, fur-covered arms around him and pressed her chest to his back. He tensed, unsure if this was comfort or preparation to break his spine, but nothing happened. Soon the cold faded and sleep took over. Jack drifted off, wrapped in the strain but life-saving embrace of the alien female. He didn't know her name, her language, or her reason. He only knew he was still alive, and for now that was enough. When Jack woke up, the bunker was empty. The warmth was gone, and the room felt colder than before. He sat up, confused, rubbing his face. Then he noticed the pain on his shoulder pulling down his shirt. He saw it. A strange glowing symbol had been burned into his skin. It looked like a claw mark mixed with an ancient rune. It pulsed with faint heat and shimmered under the low light. Jack stared, heart pounding. He hadn't felt anything when she touched him, but this was no accident. The door slammed open and Jack jumped. Outside, several tall figures stood in the snow. Velcaro warriors, all with similar fur and glowing eyes, but their expressions were not peaceful. They looked at him, then at the glowing mark on his shoulder, and their eyes widened. One of them roared, and pointed at Jack. The others growled and stepped forward. Surrounding him, Jack backed up, raising his hands. He didn't understand what the mark meant, but they didn't. They were angry, very angry. He tried to speak, but they didn't care. One warrior lunged forward, its claws out. Before it could reach him, a howl echoed through the sky. The warriors froze, turning their heads toward the mountains. Another howl followed, louder, deeper, powerful. They stopped attacking, their eyes filled with fear. Jack didn't know why, but something had changed. That howl, it came from her, Rosari, and now the hunt was just beginning. Hunters of the Moonclans, they. Wind had stopped howling, but the danger had just begun. Jack stood in the bunker doorway, surrounded by tall, growling aliens with glowing yellow eyes and sharp claws. The mark on his shoulder burned faintly, and he didn't know why. But the way these aliens looked at him, with fury, with fear, it was clear. This symbol meant something powerful, something dangerous. One of them stepped forward, his fur dyed with red streaks, his armor carved with tribal patterns. He sniffed the air near Jack and snarled, showing long white fangs. Outsider carries the mate mark, he growled in deep, broken English. You touch the blood, now you carry her bond. Jack blinked, confused. What? Bond? I didn't touch anyone, he replied, backing away slowly. But the warriors growled louder, surrounding him like wolves around prey. Their leader lifted his claw and pointed at the glowing symbol. You lie, human, he hissed. You are marked by Rosari, daughter of the Moon Clans, claimed by her in sacred right. Jack's mind raced. Sacred right, all he had done was sleep beside her. Was that enough for a bond in their world? He hadn't asked for this, hadn't agreed to anything, but now it was clear he was in the middle of a tribal war he didn't understand. Suddenly another howl rose from the snowy cliffs. Long and haunting, the warriors froze, turning toward the sound, their eyes widened with fear. The blood returns. The leader whispered, we must leave. In a flash, they vanished into the snow, leaving Jack alone once more. He dropped to his knees, breathing heavily. The snow fell silently again, but the peace didn't last. Moments later, a shadow moved at the edge of the trees. Rosari appeared, tall and fierce, her fur soaked with melting snow, her golden eyes burning. Jack stood quickly, his heart pounding. You left me, he said. What did you do to me? Rosari walked closer, her gaze locked on his. I saved you, she said simply, but the mark was the price. Jack touched the glowing symbol on his shoulder. It hurts, he whispered. It will stop soon, she replied, kneeling beside him. The bond connects us now. Human, your scent is mine, your life is mine. My enemies are now yours. He pulled back, panic rising. I didn't agree to this. Snorts, he said. I didn't choose any of it. Rosari tilted her head, confused. In Velker law, survival is choice enough. You slept beside me. You accepted my warmth. I marked you under the ancient right. Jack looked at her, unsure what to feel. She had saved his life, yes, but now he was tied to her forever. What happens now? He asked, voice low. You run, she said, standing again, because the Moonclans will hunt you. They think you stole me. They want blood. Jack shook his head. This is madness, he muttered. No, she replied. This is Velcro. They moved through the snowy forest, fast and silent. Rosari guided him with ease, moving like a ghost between the trees. She paused, often sniffing the air, listening to distant sounds Jack struggled to keep up, slipping on ice, breathing hard, his legs still locked from the crash. And now, the bond made it worse. He started to hear things, low voices in his mind, whispers in a strange language. At first, he thought he was hallucinating. But then Rosari stopped. You hear them now, she said quietly. Jack nodded. Sweating, yes, voices, they're not mine. The bond opens your mind, she explained. Soon you'll feel what I feel. See what I see. Jack was silent for a moment. That's not normal, he said. It is for mates, she replied suddenly. Sharp scream echoed nearby. Not Humanara. An angry Rosari growled, pulling him behind a large ice rock. 3 warriors from another clan marched past them, weapons drawn. These are the Flameclaw tribe, she whispered. They want to bring me back, force me to bond with their war leader. Jack stared at her, shocked. They want to force you to marry him, she nodded slowly. Yes, but I chose differently. I chose you. Jack's heart raced. I didn't ask for this, he repeated. But now you carry the mark, she said, her voice firm. So now we both run or we fight. They waited until the warriors passed, then continued through the forest. Every step took Jack deeper into a world he didn't understand, a world of tribes, blood, ancient rules, and powerful bonds. He didn't know what the future held, but one thing was clear. This was no longer just about survival. It was about her. It was about them. And the Moonklings wouldn't stop hunting until they were both dead. The bond that burns the sky above Velkaroth 3 turned deep red as the sun dipped behind the frozen peaks. The shadows stretched longer and the cold bit deeper. Jack and Rosari moved silently through the forest, always alert, always watching, but something strange had started inside Jack, something he couldn't explain. His senses were sharper. He could hear branches snapping far away, smell things he never noticed before, burned metal, cold animal breath, even the scent of Rosari's fur. Beside him, his muscles ached, but not from pain. They felt tighter, like something inside was waking up. He tried to shake it off, but the bond on his shoulder pulsed again, hot like fire. Under the skin, they reached an old cave by the cliffs, hidden behind thick ice. Rosari led him inside without speaking. She didn't need to. Jack already felt her thoughts pressing against his own. Not words, not voices, but emotions, fear, anger, regret, and something else too, warmth, a soft pull toward him. Jack dropped to the ground near the fire she lit, rubbing his face. What's happening to me? He asked. Finally, you're changing, Rosari said, her eyes reflecting the flame like molten gold. The mark is inside you now. It binds not just body but spirit. I didn't want to be part of this, he muttered. Rosari's expression didn't change, but her voice grew softer. Neither did I, human, but fate made a choice when we survived together. Jack stood pacing slowly. I hear your emotions. I feel them too, but I don't know what's real anymore. Rosari looked at him closely, then walked forward and placed a hand on his chest. You feel me, because we are bonded, she said. This is how the Velkara choose their life partners, not by words but by instinct, by spirit fire. Jack's breath caught in his throat. Her touch wasn't cold, was hot, burning through his skin. His mind flashed with images that weren't his memories of her past. Fights, training in the snow, being rejected by her clan, and then him, his face in the bunker, his warmth against her back. He stumbled backward, Clutching his head, "Stop please, this is too much." Rosari stepped back. Looking down, "I tried to hide the bond, but the mark awakened it when you were in danger." Outside, a loud howl shattered the quiet. Rosaria's ears twitched and she pulled her blade. "They found us again," she said. "We must move." But Jack couldn't move. He dropped to his knees, his body burning. From inside, the mark glowed bright red, now pulsing like a heartbeat. His skin steamed where the mark was, and he gasped for breath. "What's happening to me?" he shouted. "Your snorts entering the fire stage," Rosari said, kneeling beside him. "The bond tests you, breaks you before it makes you stronger." Jack screamed as his body twisted with pain. Vision slammed into his mind. Rosari's memories again, and now his own mixed with hers, his childhood, his battles, his pain and her loneliness, her exile, her strength. Then it stopped. Burning faded, and Jack collapsed on the cave floor, sweating and breathing hard. Rosari pulled him close, holding him tightly like a warrior cradling a fallen comrade. "The worst is over," she whispered. "Now you are truly bonded. Not just marked, but chosen." He didn't speak for a long time. He just stared at the fire, feeling his heartbeat settle. But something inside was different now. He could feel her, fully feel her, as if her soul brushed against his with every breath. He knew her name before she even said it. "Rosari," he whispered. She looked surprised. "You heard it," she said quietly. "I felt it," he replied, "like I've known it forever." Outside, another howl echoed, this one closer, more violent. "We're out of time," she said, grabbing her spear. "Then we fight," Jack said, standing slowly, fire still burning in his eyes. Rosari stared at him, studying his face. "You're not the same man I found in that bunker," she said. "No," Jack replied. "Now I'm the man you marked." The two stood together at the cave entrance, watching the snow swirl. The Moon clans were coming, and this time Jack wouldn't run. He didn't know how, but he felt stronger, now connected, focused. The bond had burned away his doubt. All that remained was fire, fury, and the will to fight beside her for the first time on Velcarathri. Jack Rendell wasn't just surviving, he was becoming something more. Rosaria's pack. The cold wind roared through the mountain passes as Jack and Rosari climbed higher. The forest thinned behind them, replaced by jagged rocks and icy cliffs. Velcro's red sun hung low on the horizon, casting a bloody glow across the peaks. They were heading into forbidden territory now, a place where few dared to walk. Jack's body ached, but the bond pushed him forward stronger than ever before. They stopped at the edge of a high ridge, looking down at a hidden valley filled with thick smoke and glowing fires. In the center stood massive stone structures carved with ancient symbols and claw marks. Dozens of Velsera warriors moved, blossom training, some sharpening weapons, others howling at the sky. Jack narrowed his eyes. "That's your pack," he said slowly. Rosari nodded once, her face unreadable. "They were once my family," she said. "Now I am their shame." Jack turned to her, confused. "Why?" "Because you chose a human." She looked away, her voice bitter. "Because I chose for myself, not for them." She stepped forward, leading him down a narrow path into the valley. As they walked, Jack felt hundreds of eyes turned toward him. Velcro warriors snarled and growled, their claws twitching. Some looked ready to attack. Others simply stared in disbelief. A few whispered her name like a ghost returned from the dead. They reached the center of the camp where an old Velkara male stood with a heavy cloak and scar across his chest. His fur was white with age, but his eyes burned with fire. Razari, he said, his voice cold, you dare return? I return as is my right, she replied, standing tall. I bring my bonded maid before the pack. The old warrior looked Jack up and down with disgust. A human, weak, soft, unworthy. He spat. Jack clenched his fists but said nothing. This is Toriel Rasari, whispered my father. Jack's heart sank. That made things worse, much worse. Tago walked in a slow circle around Jack, sniffing the air like a beast. He smells of you, he growled, and of fire, but I see no strength in his eyes. Rasari stepped forward, growling. Lo, he carries the bond. He survived the fire. He belongs to me. The gathered warriors shouted in outrage, slamming weapons to the ground. Torgel raised his hand and silence fell. If this human truly carries the mark, then let him prove it. Jack stepped forward. How? He asked firmly. By blood, Toggle said, pointing to a stone circle at the edge of the camp. The trial of the claw fight, as our ancestors did, and if you survive, you will be accepted as her mate. Jack glanced at Rasari, and she nodded slowly. I'll do it, he said. Toggle smirked. Then prepare, human. Your blood will soak these stones before the sun sets. That night the trial grounds were filled with fire, light, and chanting. Hundreds of Velkara gathered around the stone ring. Jack stood at the center, shirtless, the bond on his shoulder glowing bright red. His breath formed steam in the cold air, and his heart beat like a drum. Rasari stood just outside the ring, watching silently. She had not spoken since the trial was announced. Now Jack stood alone, facing whatever beast they would throw at him. He knew this wasn't just a test of strength, it was a test of spirit, of will, of the bond itself. A massive gate opened with a grinding sound. From the shadows stepped a monstrous creature, 8 feet tall, furred like a Valkyra, but wild and broken. It had no eyes, only scars, and its claws were like steel. Gasps spread through the crowd. Jack whispered under his breath, what is that thing? The bone hound, Rasari answered, her voice shaking. They use it for executions, not trials. Jack didn't have time to be afraid. The beast roared and charged, and the trial began. He dodged the first swipe, rolled across the ground, and grabbed a bone spear thrown to him. The beast lunged again, but Jack stabbed it in the shoulder. It howled in pain, blood spraying across the arena, but it wasn't enough. The creature slammed into Jack, throwing him against the stone wall. Pain exploded through his back, but the bond flared. Again, he heard Rasari's voice in his mind. Get up, fight, you are mine. Strength surged through him, wild and burning. Jack leaped to his feet, dodged the next attack, and drove the spear deep into the creature's chest. It collapsed with a final scream, shaking the ground. Silence followed. Then, slowly, the warriors began to howl, not in anger but in respect. Toggle stepped into the ring, his face unreadable. You live, he said. Jack nodded, breathing hard. I do. You are bonded, the old warrior continued. Jack looked toward Rasari, who walked toward him. Now she placed her hand over his mark. I claim him again, she said, voice steady. This time before all of you. Toggle looked at the gathered pack, then lowered his head. So be it. The human stands among us now, not as prey, but as one of the pack. The trial of Claw Snow fell slowly on the valley as drums echoed through the mountains. The trial of Claws had ended, but its shadows still lingered. Jack's body was covered in bruises, cuts, and dried blood, yet he stood tall beside Rosari, not as an outsider but as one of them. The crowd of Velsura warriors had stopped growling, stopped glaring. Now they watched him with something else, curiosity, maybe even respect. To Rosari's father stood before the gathered pack with a heavy axe slung across his back. The trial has spoken, he announced, voice deep and slow. The human has earned a place beside my daughter, but honor must still be tested. Jack narrowed his eyes. I already passed your trial, he said. Toggle shook his head slowly. You passed the trial of the flesh, but not the trial of the spirit. A quiet gasp moved through the pack. Even Rosari turned her head sharply. That right is forbidden, she growled. Toggle stared at her unmoved. Only those truly worthy may enter the heart of the mountain. Jack stepped forward, tired but unshaken. What is the trial of the spirit? To pointed to cave high above the valley, smoke curling from its entrance. Inside lives the old Claw, the first bondsir of our kind. No one lies to her, no one hides from her sight. If your bond is true, she will accept you. If it is false, you will never return. Jack glanced at Rosari. Will you come with me? She shook her head, face grim. No one may enter with you. This is your test alone. He nodded once, heart heavy, and began the long climb. Each step up the icy cliff burned his wounds, pulling at his skin. The wind howled louder here, as if warning him back, but the bond pushed him forward, pulling at his chest like a silent thread. At the top, the cave mouth loomed wide and dark. Jack stepped inside, the warmth of fire brushing his face. The walls glowed faintly with ancient carving, symbols of teeth, claws, stars, and eyes. At the center sat a figure, draped in black fur, her face hidden beneath a mask carved from bone. You carry the mark, the old Claw whispered without looking up. Jack paused, unsure how to respond. I do, he said quietly. She tilted her head. And yet you carry doubt. Jack took a deep breath. Yes, I didn't choose this. Not in the beginning, but now, she asked, voice like wind through dry leaves. He hesitated, then said, now I would die for her. Silence fell. The fire dimmed, shadows dancing across the walls. Suddenly Jack's mind exploded with images, not memories but visions. Rosari as a child, cast out for refusing her arranged mate, her alone in the wilds fighting beasts with bare claws, her howl in the bunker when she thought he might die, then his own life, his past battles, the guilt he carried, the loneliness he hid. The two paths twisted together, merging like flame and smoke. Jack cried out, falling to his knees. The bond inside him burned like fire in his blood. He felt her pain, her strength, her heart, and it was not separate from his anymore. When he opened his eyes, the old Claw stood above him, her mask gone. Her face was ancient, eyes cloudy but burning with power. You are not Velkhara, she said, but the bond is true. Your spirit walks beside hers, not behind. She leaned forward and placed a clawed hand on his. Mark, then be one, not by blood but by fire. A flash of light burst through his chest and Jack screamed. The bond flared once more, hotter than ever, but when the pain faded, he was standing taller, breathing deeper. The mark on his shoulder had changed, no longer just red but glowing with threads of gold. You carry the soul fang now, the old Claw whispered, the rarest mark seen. Only once in 10 lifetimes, Jack nodded. Heart pounding, what does it mean? It means, she said slowly, that you are no longer just her mate, you are her equal. He snorts left the cave in silence, climbing down with the snow still falling gently. At the bottom, Rosari stood waiting, her golden eyes searching his face. When she saw the new mark, she stepped forward, shocked. You passed? She said. I did, he replied, and I carry the soul fang. The pack stared in silence, then dropped to one knee, every last one of them. Even Toggle lowered his head. Rosari reached out and took Jack's hand. For the first time there were no doubts, no shadows between them. They stood as one, bonded by survival, fire, and now the deepest rite of all, night of the red moon. The red moon rose over Velkarathri like a blood-stained eye in the sky. It hung low and wide, casting a fiery glow across the frozen cliffs and whispering forests. Tonight was not just any night, was the night of the red moon, a sacred time when bonds were sealed, destinies written, and oaths made under starlight and flame. Jack stood near the sacred altar of stone, his mark glowing with threads of gold. Beside him, Rosari prepared silently, her fur braided with silver feathers, her armor marked with the claws of her ancestors. They were ready, but the path ahead was not clear, because not everyone wanted this bond to be completed. Elders of the Valkyra, cloaked in thick robes and ancient bone masks, circled the altar. They spoke in low voices, arguing, hissing. The bond is too strong, one elder warned. If sealed, it may change our future. He is not Valkara, another spat. He carries power not born of our kind, and yet the soul fang burns on him. The eldest replied, it cannot be denied. Toggle stepped forward, standing between his daughter and the elders. You challenged him and he stood. You doubted him and he survived. Now you would deny the right. An elder slammed his staff to the ground. The bond may bring war. The tribes will not accept a human leading. Beside her, Jack finally spoke, his voice calm but strong. I didn't come here to lead. I came to survive, then to stand beside the one who saved me. Rosari turned to face the elders, her voice sharp as a blade. I did not choose him by mistake. I chose him because the fire in him matches the fire in me. The elders paused, then slowly stepped back. They would not bless the ritual, but they would not stop it either. The crowd around the altar grew silent as the drums began, low, steady, like the heartbeat of the planet itself. The ritual began with the flame walk. Jack and Rosari walked barefoot across a path of heated stones, hand in hand, eyes locked. Each step burned, but they never broke focus, never let go. The pain was part of the rite, a test of unity, of shared strength. Next came the blood oath. A small blade was drawn across each of their palms. They pressed hands together, letting their blood mix and drip onto the sacred stone. The stone hissed and glowed, accepting their bond. The mark on Jack's shoulder shimmered brighter, pulsing like a living flame. Suddenly the wind shifted, a cold gust swept across the valley, and with it came a howl, deep, long, and filled with fury. From the shadows beyond the firelight, a war horn sounded. The ritual stopped. Warriors turned, weapons drawn. Out of the darkness charged warriors from the Flinkla tribe, their eyes wild, armor glowing with orange light. At their front stood Korak, the rejected suitor, the warlord who once claimed Rosari as His own, this bond is a lie, he shouted. She was promised to me by the old blood. Oath, you promised chains, Rosari shouted back, stepping in front of Jack. I chose freedom. Jack didn't wait. He grabbed a fallen spear and stood beside her. We finish this together, he said. Rosari nodded, her voice calm. Then let the blood moon witness. The battle erupted like a storm. Claws clashed. Blades flashed and howls echoed across the valley. Jack fought with instinct, not training, his movements now part of something deeper. He could feel Rosari beside him, not just fighting beside him, but inside his mind, left flank. She whispered in his thoughts. He turned just in time to block an axe, driving his spear into the attacker's chest. Behind you, he ducked, spun, and kicked. Their minds were moving as one, flowing like fire through ice. Core charged with a massive warblade, aiming for Rosari. Jack threw himself between them, blocking the first blow with his arm. Pain exploded, but the mark burned hotter, sending a shock wave through the ground. Core was thrown back, stunned. Rosari pounced, her claws flashing under the red moon. She struck hard and fast, bringing the warlord to his knees. This bond is ours, she growled, and it is stronger than any oath forced by fear. Korak roared, then collapsed, defeated. The Flameclaw warriors fled into the night. Arrow broken, silence returned, broken only by the crackling fire. The ritual resumed. Jack and Rosari stepped once more before the altar. Now even the elders were silent, unable to deny the truth written in fire and blood. They sealed the bond with the final rite, the soul call. Together they howled into the red moon, a sound that shook the stars. Their bond was complete, and the fire inside them now burned as one. They were no longer just mates, no longer just survivors. They were bonded leaders of a new future, chosen by fate. Battle and the fire between them marked as one. The red moon faded into the early light of dawn. Fires crackled low across the valley as smoke curled into the sky. Velcara warriors moved slowly, silently, like ghosts after a great storm. What had begun as a bond ceremony had turned into war. But now, in the aftermath, something new stood in its place. Jack and Rosari stood side by side at top the altar stone, both bruised, both bleeding but unbroken. The golden threads in Jack's soul, fang marks still shimmered, pulsing faintly like a second heartbeat. Their bond had not just survived, had roared to life before the eyes of the whole pack. The message was clear. This human did not just belong to Velcar warrior, he belonged to Valkyr itself. Elders knelt one by one, placing their weapons at Jack and Rosari's feet. Toggle stepped forward last, his heavy cloak trailing behind him. He stared long at Jack, the fire in his old eyes softer now. You fought like novel Valcara, he said slowly, but you bled like one of us. Jack gave a slight nod, unsure of what to say. Words didn't matter here, not like actions did. Rosari placed a clawed hand on his shoulder, her touch gentle now, not fierce. He is not here to take power, she said to her father. He is here to walk beside it. Toggle turned to the gathered pack and raised both arms. Let it be known, he shouted, the Soul Fang bond has been sealed by fire, blood, and spirit. All who stand against it now stand against the will of the ancestors. Howls rose from the warriors, loud and long, but this time Jack didn't challenge or rage. He heard welcome. He felt it deep in his bones. He was no longer the outsider lost in a blizzard. He was packed, days passed in the valley. Slowly returned to peace, Jack trained. With Velkar warriors, learning to fight. Not just with weapons but with instincts. He hunted with Rosaria across frozen plains, learning the land by feel, by scent, by silence. They know. Longer needed to speak when danger came. A glance, a breath, a heartbeat enough to move as one. He also began teaching them, showing them human battle tactics. How to read maps, how to use captured tech. The Velkara were strong, but Jack brought a new kind of strength, not better, just different. Together they made each other sharper, faster, deadlier. Word of the bonded pair spread across the Moonlands. Some feared them, others respected them, but all knew one truth: something had changed. For the first time in Velcro's long, brutal history, a human walked as equal to a daughter of the bloodline, and the old ways would never be the same again. One night, under a sky full of stars, Jack and Rosari stood at the edge of a cliff. The wind carried the scent of pine, snow, and distant fire. Rosari spoke softly. When I first found you, I thought you were weak. Jack smiled. And I thought you were going to eat me. She chuckled, the rare sound deep and warm. We were both wrong. He looked at her. I serious now. I didn't come here to change your world, but maybe I belong in it now. She stepped closer, placing her forehead against his. You don't just belong in it, Jack Rendell, you are now part of its legend. They stood in silence as a meteor crossed the sky. It glowed like a burning mark against the stars, a sign, perhaps, or just a reminder that fire could forge more than just weapons. It could forge bonds that even time would remember. And so the story of the human and the wolf alien did not end in war or death. It lived on, told in howls and whispers across the snowy lands. The tale of a man who shared a bed to survive and woke, marked as a mate, a man who was tested by fire, hunted by clans, and accepted by those who once called him prey, not because he was stronger or smarter, but because he chose to stand beside someone when it mattered most. He was marked not as outsider, not as enemy, but as